Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into a comparison I find pretty fascinating. India versus Dubai, two very different growth stories.
Absolutely. It's a great pairing.
Our mission here is to kind of unpack their unique ways of doing things, how they handle progress, technology, their place on the global stage now.
Right. Different blueprints entirely.
Yeah, and we've gathered some, well, quite a mix of sources, economic reports, analytical comparisons, cultural stuff too.
So stuff to chew on.
Exactly. We want to give you a sort of fast track to understanding these two regional powerhouses. Might be some surprises in there, some aha moments. So, okay, let's get into it. Where do we start?
Well, I think looking at their development models side by side is so valuable. It really helps understand the why behind what they're doing.
Okay.
And, why those choices matter for everyone else, potentially impacting trends that affect you. Thinking about these different roads to prosperity is just crucial today.
I completely agree. Okay, so maybe technology first, because both are definitely making waves, but wow, in such different ways.
Totally different journeys, yeah.
So, India, you've got this just booming IT sector. Cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, they're really, leading the charge.
Huge centers, absolutely.
And the government's pushed things like Digital India, Startup India, Make in India, really trying to fuel that.
Right, creating that ecosystem.
Which leads to this really dynamic startup culture. It's amazing how they're tackling global problems, ed tech, AI, fintech, you name it. And often, this is the key part, often doing it on a much tighter budget than you'd see elsewhere. Think about something like BYJU's in ed tech.
Yeah, huge reach.
Reaching millions, making quality education more accessible, often with resources that their Western counterparts might balk at.
Which brings us to Dubai. And their approach is, well, it flips the script, doesn't it? More about adopting tech, integrating it super fast, rather than inventing it from scratch.
Like a test bed, almost.
Exactly. A living laboratory is a good way to put it. You see real-world stuff happening there. Smart traffic lights are pretty standard now. Facial recognition for payments.
Wow.
AI helping run government services. They're even seriously testing autonomous air taxis.
Flying taxis. Oh.
Yeah. Not just a concept. They're aiming for operations relatively soon.
It shows their ambition, right? To be the world's smartest city. The pace is incredible.
So India's building the tech, the talent, often lean, efficient innovation. Dubai's integrating, showcasing, being this sort of ultra-modern user.
That's a good summary. Both growing like crazy, but different engines.
Which I guess raises questions. Does one model face bigger risks? Like, can India keep that budget innovation edge with global competition heating up?
That's a fair point. Talent retention preventing brain drain is definitely a challenge as its innovators get global recognition.
And for Dubai, relying so much on adoption, does that risk maybe stifling homegrown innovation down the line? Potentially. Their challenge is shifting from being the best user of tech to perhaps fostering more unique, localized innovation alongside that adoption. It's a balancing act.
So India's impact is maybe more through the talent and the fundamental tech it exports.
Right, shaping digital infrastructure globally.
While Dubai's impact is being this shining example of a future city,
Yeah.
a luxury tech lab.
Precisely. A model for integrating tech into governance and urban life. So it's not just about making versus using. It's strategic positioning in that whole tech value chain.
Okay, that distinction makes a lot of sense. And seeing how different their tech paths are, it naturally leads you to think about the money, right? The economic engines.
Oh, yeah, the GDP story. Also very different.
Okay, so India, now the fifth largest economy globally. GDP around, what, 3.7 trillion US dollars?
Massive number.
And this is the huge, but you've got over 1.4 billion people. So when you divide that huge GDP by that massive population.
The per capita number changes the picture.
Exactly. GDP per capita is much lower, around $2,600. So yeah, big economy, growing fast, but spreading the wealth across a vast number of people.
Right. Now contrast that with Dubai. First, remember, it's part of the UAE, whose total GDP is smaller, maybe around $600 billion.
Okay.
But the population is tiny in comparison. So Dubai's per capita income is way up there, close to $46,000.
46,000. Wow, that's a difference.
Huge difference. And while oil money gave them a start, that's not the main driver now. It's trade, tourism, real estate, finance. a very deliberate diversification.
Ah, okay. So they engineered that shift away from just oil.
Very much so, designed to attract global business and, frankly, wealth.
So you've got India's scale and market size versus Dubai's concentrated wealth in these high-end sectors. Small population, a high wealth, luxury focus.
That sums it up pretty well.
It really shows, I mean, just fundamentally different ways to build prosperity, doesn't it? But how does that difference in scale and wealth per person actually shape how they develop or, their influence globally? What's the biggest hurdle for each, economically speaking?
Well, that's the core of it, right? India's massive challenge is uplift, lifting hundreds of millions more people into the middle class, improving infrastructure, education, creating jobs across the board. It's about managing that immense scale.
A monumental task.
Absolutely. Dubai's challenge is different. It's about staying ahead, maintaining that high-value edge, attracting the best global talent, future-proofing itself against intense global competition in finance, tourism, tech. One's about breadth and scale, the other about niche, high-value leadership.
Scale versus specialization, in a way, okay? That's really clear. So let's pivot again. Region and culture. Because visually and socially, they couldn't be more different.
Oh, absolutely. The contrast is striking.
India, I mean, it's practically a continent. The natural diversity is just staggering. You've got everything. Forests, deserts, huge rivers, the Himalayas, massive cities.
All of it.
And culturally, so diverse. Languages, food, climates, religions. It changes dramatically from state to state. You could be in snowy Kashmir, then tropical Kerala. It really, it thrives on that deep, natural, ancient diversity.
It's woven into its very fabric.
Then you look at Dubai.
And it's like stepping into the future almost. A modern oasis built right out of the desert.
Right. Highly designed, gleaming skyscrapers, those enormous malls, the artificial islands. It feels engineered.
It is engineered. Planned, designed, built for a specific vision of the future. And culturally, the key fact is, over 85% expats?
85%. That's incredible.
It makes it a truly global city in a very literal sense, a melting pot, but one shaped by deliberate planning, not millennia of organic growth.
So India's diversity feels very organic, natural. Dubai's diversity is more imported, curated?
Curated is a good word. Or perhaps convened. It's a hub designed to attract global talent and residents.
Which is fascinating. How do those fundamentally different origins, ancient, diverse subcontinent versus futuristic planned desert city, shape their identities and what they want to achieve globally?
It shapes everything. India's identity is tied to its history, its scale, that incredible internal diversity. Its ambition often revolves around leveraging that human capital, its growing market, its geopolitical weight.
Being a major world power.
Exactly. Dubai's identity is constructed around being that future hub, a place for global business, innovation showcase, efficient governance. Less about ancient roots, more about created opportunity and strategic positioning. It wants to be a model for others.
A model of futuristic urbanism and governance. Got it.
Wow, this has been really insightful, pulling these threads together. You see two completely different narratives, but both making a huge global impact.
Definitely.
So recapping from our sources, India comes across as this tech talent factory, right? A huge market, a rising power built on its own immense diversity. Deep roots, broad reach.
And Dubai. More like a high-end tech lab, a living smart city experiment, a model for how you might run a city in the future, built through planning and attracting global resources.
Yeah, a showcase, a different kind of influence, both definitely shaping the 21st century, but, from opposite ends of the spectrum in some ways.
Which leads to maybe a final thought.
What are the long-term implications? For them, obviously, but also for the rest of us, for you listening. In a world that's getting more connected, what does it mean to have such different development paths unfolding simultaneously?
That is a great question to chew on. So maybe as you go about your day, think about that. Which model resonates more with the challenges and opportunities you see? Building from within, harnessing that internal scale and diversity, or creating a perfectly optimized environment by adopting and integrating the best from everywhere?
Interesting question to ponder.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparks some thoughts and encourage you to keep exploring these fascinating global stories.